Today's lesson is on percent yield. So percent yield is simply trying to figure out how much you made versus how much you could have made. You often calculate percent yield every time you get back a test or a lab report, and you are doing the calculations in your head. You are putting down what you actually got on your test versus how many points you actually could have gotten, multiplying that by 100 to get percent yield. It's the same thing in the lab. We're oftentimes very interested in trying to figure out whether or not we got as much as we should have gotten. So ours is observed yield over expected yield times 100 is your percent yield in the lab. So the observed yield, if you are doing a word problem, is given in your word problem. If it's in real world, it's what you collect in the lab. It's the data that you collect. How many grams of silver did I end up with? How many liters of hydrogen gas did I create? And then the expected yield is what is determined by stoichiometric calculation using the reactants that you used in the lab or are given in the word problem. And just a note, when we're talking about percent yield, oftentimes percent yield informs our error analysis. So oftentimes we will have a percent yield less than 100%, and usually that means I lost some of my product in the lab. Maybe during some procedure, part of it in the decanting process was dumped down the sink, or there was an incomplete reaction. If you are in the real world and you're being judged on percent yield, whether you're a pharmaceutical industry or a chemical engineer, any percent yield that's less than 90% yield will probably get you fired if that happens on a regular basis. If your percent yield is greater than 100%, it's not that you created more product than you could have. It just means that there are impurities that are there. And I'm not talking about the impurities of maybe the glassware was dirty when I used it. I'm talking about impurities of maybe there was excess reactant because there was a limiting reactant, or maybe there was a side reaction. Maybe there was oxidation with reaction with the air, the oxygen in the air. Maybe there was nitrogen reaction. Maybe there was too much excess heat and I'm causing some sort of reaction that's going on because of some sort of thermal decomposition. So these are all things that could happen, and the percent yield, although the calculation is quite easy, observed over expected, really we use it for our error analysis within the lab, and that's why it's really important to be able to calculate percent yield in the lab.